Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time once again. I'm bringing you my Super League Round 4 power rankings. Before I get on with the actual list, make sure you check the pinned comment down below and answer the Rugby League fan question that I've left for you guys to let me know your thoughts on. And if you guys do have your own power rankings, also let me know in the comments down below. And finally, if you'd like to get yourself some Kinetic merchandise, check the link in the description for the Kinetic Rugby League store and have a look at the hoodies available today. Starting in 12th place and still in 12th, I have the Salford Red Devils. They took on the Castleford Tigers in round 4, which would have been their best chance yet to pick up points in this 2025 Super League campaign. And the scoreline was certainly more acceptable compared to the last two outings for the first team, but this was against what most people will say is the weakest squad in Super League. I do think Salford have a strong enough squad to bounce back later into the season, but for now, they're still firmly in the basement in 12th place. Moving on to 11th place, and still in 11th, I have the Castleford Tigers. I think given the difficulties they've dealt with to start the season, whether it be adjustments to the spine for individuals or having to compete against very strong forward packs, I'm happy to finally see them get a win on the board this season. In all 4 rounds, they've shown a willingness to fight for 80 minutes, and as much as the quality of their squad might be lacking, having the mentality to keep fighting even in the toughest of situations is a valuable asset to have ingrained in your DNA as a team. And with Salford applying pressure on them throughout the game, Castleford's attitude to keep going helped them get over the line to pick up their first win of the season. There will be more challenges to come over the next few weeks. Some may be way too difficult to overcome, but I hope they can take some confidence from round 4 and continue building. Next up, in 10th place, moving down 1 this week, I have the Huddersfield Giants. Since the start of last season, not many teams have had the privilege to say they've gone into the sheds at half-time against Wigan with a lead. Unfortunately, they were then massively outperformed in the second half, but they've shown sparks in both attack and defence since round 1 in my opinion. They are also another team that's going through struggles at the moment, but if they can start putting together complete performances and not just show those sparks here and there, they will upset a few teams as the year goes on. But will the Catalans Dragons be happy they finally got a win this season and be happy that they've moved up to 9th in my power rankings? Oui, monsieur. For anyone to hold another team to 0 points is impressive stuff. Now, does only scoring 11 points still raise questions about their attack? Probably. But if your defence is solid enough to keep teams out, maybe, just maybe, a drop goal will be enough. And 11-0 might not be the result Catalans fans were hoping for to turn the season around, but if the Dragons can start connecting effectively on at least one side of the ball, they can start to work their way up the ladder and say bonjour to a top 6 spot. Moving on to 8th place, the biggest movers of the week, dropping by a staggering 3 places, I have the Warrington Wolves. Have they missed an average of 39 tackles per game in the last 3? Sure. Have they also managed an average of 11 errors per game in their last 3 as well? Oh yeah. And have they allowed an average of 15 offloads per game in the last 3? Of course they have, but that's okay. There are only really important details we need to sort out as soon as possible. Nothing major. So let's not panic just yet. But if Warrington felt that they'd like to implement an effective kicking game, improve their defence in the middle to stop teams from easily breaking away from their own try line, wrap up the ball, make a bloody tackle, or have some cojones to throw the ball around with some shape once in a while, well, I, for one, would be delighted. I am losing the will to live, but that is Warrington in 8th place. Just missing out on a top 6 spot, moving up 1, is Hull FC. For me, they're a little bit like the Huddersfield Giants with how I described them. You'll get flashes of quality both in attack and defence during games, but they aren't putting together complete performances right now. The thing that puts them above Huddersfield in this case is the fact that their base quality compared to the Giants is higher, so they're able to compete a little better in most games. The fact they went down to 11 men at one point and still managed to claw their way to a draw and score 22 points against a very strong defensive side in Leigh is great work and shows clear progress compared to last year's squad. Just holding on to a top 6 spot will be non-movers Leeds Rhinos. If we look at their performances over the last few weeks, they've demonstrated an ability to put up decent points, so a lapse in round 4 versus a quality side on paper is disappointing but not unforgivable. And it also doesn't completely erase the work that they've done in rounds 2 and 3. Are we all that surprised by the loss? Maybe not, but I think the massive drop in points scored is a potential sign of the Leeds we've come to know over the last few years, which is a bit of inconsistency. If we at least try and look at their performance with a positive spin, they only conceded 11 points, and on most occasions holding a team to anything below 12 would be considered enough to get a win. They aren't putting in world-class performances, but they also aren't putting in absolute stinkers. It's just kind of in the middle, which for now is probably just about acceptable. Now starting to get a nosebleed, moving up 2 places this week, I have Wakefield Trinity in 5th place. They've played Leeds Rhinos, Hull KR, St Helens and Warrington Wolves, and they haven't looked out of place at all yet. I think individual quality across their squad will probably mean they'll struggle to take on some of the strongest teams in the league, but as a unit, there's no shaky adjustment period that they're going through at the moment. Of course, they could clean up their execution in possession a little bit, but they're not starting at the bottom and having to play catch up. They can compete in the middle fairly well, with strong carries of their own and restricting meters through the middle when defending. And same goes for the backs as well. They're carrying well, making good meters and challenging the edges of teams with confidence. And defensively, there's a lot of energy going into their scramble defense, with individuals just putting in that extra little effort when making a play. Moving on to 4th place, and still in 4th, I have Hull Kingston Rovers. Now, a lot of my viewers are Hull KR fans, and they maybe would have expected a move up this week, but my reasoning right now is that their round 1 and round 2 performances were a bit lackluster against opponents you would have expected them to look a little more comfortable against. And those performances are still recent. Against Salford, their attack looked really well connected and comfortable, and they followed that up with an even more familiar Robins performance against an exciting looking attacking side in St Helens. So as much as moving them up would be understandable, the teams above them have already put in enough good work to hold those spots, but the gap to them has closed massively, meaning it won't take too much for Hull KR to move into the top 3, depending on how the top 3 teams do next week. But their attack looked well connected again, a few moments went their way as well with individual plays, and their goal line defence was solid. I just need to see that on display just a little bit more before I'm ready to put them into the top 3, but great turnaround from the Robins since they're opening 2 fixtures. Retaining a top 3 spot but moving down a place, I have the Leigh Leopards. Based on how clunky and questionable Hull have looked so far compared to Leigh, I was expecting a slightly more comfortable game for the Leopards. I think they lost through the middle this week and probably struggled to deal with the energy Hull FC came out with in parts last week, especially when the home crowd got behind their side during the double sin bin and other questionable refereeing decisions. There was nothing about their performance that suggests to me their attack or defence isn't still legit, but not causing more damage during the double sin bin period was a bit disappointing, which was due to a mix of errors and ill discipline, which kind of eased up the pressure on Hull FC. Taking a step off the top spot after finally taking on a proper challenge in round 4, I have St Helens. I'm not going to take anything away from their previous performances because they've shown how lethal they can be all over the park, but they just switched off a little bit this week I think at times. 2 main areas of concern for me were missed tackles, for which they had 51 against Hull KR. That's not going to go well for you against any team, but a team like Hull Kingston Rovers will completely demolish you with the quick individuals they've got, and given that they can play off the cuff so well. My second complaint would be about their intent. Yes, they were down by a decent chunk of points late on, but with a quarter of the game to go, they decided to commit to default Rugby League for the rest of the game. Barely any thought of attacking the edges or trying something a little different, just constant chip kicks into the corners, like it's the first 20 minutes and they're trying to set the tone. The tone was already set and you were losing. Where's the bravery we'd seen in previous weeks? But I will say their dominance versus Castleford and control versus Wakefield is enough for me right now to just keep them in the top 3, but as I mentioned with Hull Kingston Rovers, that gap is a lot smaller. Finally, moving up to the top spot this week, I have the Wigan Warriors. They've averaged 46 points per game in their last 3, putting any doubts over their attacking capabilities this season to bed after round 1, when they were a little unimaginative, but they fixed that up real quick and have been dominant since. I would say the worst aspects of their recent performances was probably easing up against Warrington in Vegas in the final quarter, and then probably having a slower start than usual versus Huddersfield in round 4. But what I find most fascinating about Wigan is that it's no secret how they play. You'll often see their attack from week to week looking very similar, and I don't think they have a myriad of attacking shapes available on command. A lot of it's the same stuff most weeks, but the pace, timing, and accuracy when executing is just too much for some defences. Players will find themselves in the right pockets, making the perfect pass in tight spaces. Wigan Warriors are extremely impressive and they take the top spot in my power rankings this week. So that's going to be it for this video. If you guys have your own list, do let me know in the comments down below and make sure you check out the Rugby League fan question that I've pinned to the comments. But if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like. It does help to get the video out there to more people. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with more Rugby League content, and check out the Kinetic Rugby League website and store in the description down below. But that's going to be it. Thanks for watching and I will see you next time.